They didn't ask me, they just went ahead and made the decision for me. And like always, I was supposed to smile, nod along, and somehow make it all work. My name's Jenna Wallace. I'm 29, a lead accountant at a mid-size firm that most people outside the financial world have never even heard of. I keep to myself, low-key life, quiet apartment, zero drama. Everything I've got, I earned from scratch. My degree? Earned it. The job? Landed it through hard work. Even the dining table in my kitchen, paid for it piece by piece. No shortcuts. No freebies. But if you asked my family, they'd probably say I'm distant. Not because I've ever lost my temper or slammed a door on them, just because I finally stopped being the one who cleaned up after everyone else. I've got an older sister, Lindsay. She's 2 years ahead of me, but always somehow trailing behind in life. Lindsay has this talent for turning every personal failure into some heartbreaking story and making everyone else feel like it's their problem to fix. Another job gone? Toxic boss. Kicked out of her latest apartment? The roommates were jealous. Missed another bill? She's doing her best. And our parents, Susan and Henry, never question any of it. They just shuffle things around to accommodate her, and when that's not enough, they look at me. You're the steady one, Jenna. You're lucky to be able to help. That line followed me for years. Help with her car note. Help with rent. Help with court fines. Help, help, help. And on the rare occasions I pushed back and said no, they made me out to be the ungrateful one, like I was the one causing damage. It didn't take me long to understand that in our family, being loved wasn't the same as being useful. And even usefulness has its limit, and mine was about to be tested. Sunday dinners at my parents' place followed a routine. Same casserole. Same old table. Same fake pleasantries hiding real tension. But that particular evening felt staged. My mom greeted me with this overly cheerful smile that didn't reach her eyes. You look so skinny, honey. Are you eating right? Dad barely glanced up. Just gave me a half-hearted nod and muttered, "Hey, kiddo." Lindsay was already seated, glued to her phone, not making eye contact like a teenager summoned to the principal's office. I knew the signs. When Mom got syrupy and Dad turned mute, it usually meant they were about to hit me with something they knew I wouldn't be thrilled to hear. We got through the salad course. Mom chatted about the weather like it was breaking news. Dad kept refilling his drink. Lindsay pushed her food around like she was waiting for it to disappear. Then Mom gently put her fork down, laced her fingers together, and gave me the look, that rehearsed, guilt-laced smile she always used right before asking for something huge. "Jenna," she started, voice soft like cotton, "we've been talking. Lindsay's hit a rough patch lately, and, well, she'll be moving in with you for a bit." Just like that. No heads up. No conversation. Like she was handing me a plate of cookies, assuming I'd just say yes. The pause afterward was thick, like they were waiting for me to push back, so they could call me selfish for doing so. I glanced at Lindsay. She looked up just long enough to meet my eyes, then looked away. Dad cleared his throat, already preparing for the inevitable disagreement. But I just smiled. "Sure," I said casually. "If it helps her get back on track, why not?" Silence. Mom blinked, clearly surprised. Dad exhaled like he'd just avoided a car crash. Lindsay leaned back in her chair, this smug look creeping across her face like ivy. None of them noticed how still I became after that. How quiet. They thought I had folded, but what they didn't know, what not a single one of them had bothered to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment for weeks, and I wasn't about to let Lindsay, or any of them, move into a place that didn't even exist anymore. It's not like I woke up one morning and decided to start lying to my family. It was a slow build, years of disappointments, of being guilted into favors, of sacrifices erased like they'd never happened. I eventually realized that in our household, being dependable just meant you were the easiest one to lean on or lean over. When I was 22, Lindsay had her car repossessed. She called me in tears, said she'd just gotten a new job and needed help getting there. Swore this job was different. Said she just needed a little support to get started. My credit was spotless. Co-signing didn't seem like a huge risk. 3 weeks later, she stopped going to work. And of course, stopped paying. Guess whose credit ended up trashed? Yep, mine. I was 24 when Mom called me in tears because they were behind on the mortgage. Dad had just lost his job. Lindsay was back home again. The next morning, I wired over $2,000 without a second thought. No one said thank you. That Christmas, Mom handed me a mug that read, "Best daughter ever," and I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. By the time I turned 26, Lindsay got a DUI, or at least, it was the first one we actually found out about. Dad asked me to keep it quiet, said it would ruin the family's name. I covered the lawyer's fee. Lindsay never acknowledged it. A year later, she got pulled over again, and this time I said no. That's when Mom called me heartless. You've never known what it's like to truly worry about someone you love, she told me. Lindsay's had it harder than you. That was it. The moment I stopped wondering and just knew. They didn't actually see me, they saw what I could do. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a human ATM with a polite smile. I started pulling back, little by little. I wasn't rude, just subtle. I said things like, "I'll think about it," instead of "sure." I changed the subject. I took longer to reply. And they noticed. Oh, they didn't like it one bit. One evening, I sat alone in my condo, the one I'd bought on my own, decorated with clearance finds, paid for month after month through spreadsheets and self-discipline. I stared at the door and realized something awful. I didn't feel safe there anymore. Not physically, but emotionally. It didn't feel like mine. Because when my family wanted something, it became ours. My space, my time, my money, my boundaries, all fair game. That night, I made up my mind. I contacted a realtor. Sold the condo quietly, legally. No big announcement. Then I moved into a modest little rental across town. No one asked where, and I never offered. Not to be petty, not for revenge, but for survival. Because when you grow up in a family that only values your utility, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is vanish just enough to breathe. The messages started rolling in that Monday. Lindsay's mattress will be there Saturday. Henry's packing the boxes Friday night. She's so excited to finally have her own space. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They were talking to the old me, the one who'd bend, break, and stay silent. That version didn't live here anymore. They just hadn't caught on. By Thursday, Mom was texting daily, "Let me know if you need help cleaning before Lindsay gets there." Lindsay says she doesn't want to be a burden. She's even bringing her own dishes. That last one made me snort into my coffee. Lindsay hadn't done her own dishes in years. But I didn't respond. I didn't push back. I let them believe what they wanted. Saturday morning, I got up early, grabbed coffee, then took a slow drive across town with no real destination. I wandered through a farmer's market I had no intention of buying from. Stood in the sun, soaking up the stillness. My phone buzzed in my pocket, 3 missed calls. Then a 4th rang through. I picked up, "Jenna." It was Mom, but not her usual soft tone. This one was tight, almost cracking. "What is going on?" "There's a man here. He says he lives in your condo. He says you don't live here anymore." I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel it, the disorientation, the confusion, the sudden loss of control. "You didn't tell us," she snapped. "You never said anything." "That's right," I said calmly. "I didn't." In the background, I heard bags rustling. Dad muttering. Lindsay saying something I couldn't make out. "Jenna," Mom hissed. "What is this?" "I sold the condo," I said plainly. "I told you weeks ago," I said simply. "You what?" Mom's voice cracked. "I moved out." Quietly, I said. Didn't think it mattered. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say. There was silence on the line. I pictured them standing there on the porch, bags at their feet, arms crossed, finally realizing they'd staged an ambush and arrived at the wrong castle. Then Dad broke through the quiet. "You lied to us. You said she could move in." I stayed calm. I said, "If it helps Lindsay, I don't see why not." I never said where. Another pause. Then a sharp inhale, one from Mom, another from Lindsay. Finally, she spoke. So, what? We're just supposed to figure it out now. Her voice wasn't angry, just lost, small, and for a second I nearly softened, but I didn't, because what they didn't know was this. I hadn't changed the locks to prove a point. I hadn't sold the condo to punish them. I did it because I was tired of living in a space that never felt like mine. I did it because I wanted to walk through my own front door without flinching. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for people who refuse to grow is to stop shrinking yourself to make room for them. They assumed that was the end of it. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my door. I knew they'd come. Even that morning, sipping coffee and watching voicemails pile up, I knew Mom wouldn't let it go. She'd dig, she'd pester someone, she'd show up, if only to remind me that no matter how far I moved, I was still in reach. Still bound. Still theirs. The knock came at sunset. 3 sharp, polite taps, the kind people use when they're barely holding it together. I peered through the peephole. There they were, Susan, Henry, Lindsay. Trunk full of boxes on the curb, like it was a move-in day. I opened the door halfway. You found me, I said, flat. Mom looked flushed, lipstick faded, her hair pulled back like she'd run her hands through it too many times. We tried calling, she said, her voice tight. We didn't think you'd be here. It's my apartment, I said evenly. But you said, Dad's voice was rising now. You said she could move in. I didn't budge. I said, if it helps Lindsay, I don't see why not. That was about the old place. Which, if you recall, I don't live in anymore. Lindsay stepped forward, arms crossed, cheeks flushed, not with shame, but rage. This is petty, Jenna, she snapped. You always act like you're better than everyone. But this is just cruel. I tilted my head. You packed your whole life into boxes and drove across town without ever confirming I still live there. That's not cruelty. That's entitlement. Her voice cracked. You're my sister. Yes, I said calmly. And for years, you've confused that with free housing. Dad stepped in then, his voice heavy with warning. Enough, Jenna. We're not leaving. We've put up with a lot from you. You owe this to your sister. There it was. The word that always lingered unspoken, OWEAS, if every dollar I handed over, every mess I cleaned up, every night I lay awake solving problems I didn't cause, had all been entered into some invisible ledger I never agreed to. I stepped back and picked up my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, her eyes narrowing. I didn't answer. I just dialed .3 rings. Then, 911, what's your emergency? I kept my voice steady. Hi, yes. I have family members outside my apartment who are refusing to leave. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report it trespassing. Lindsay's mouth dropped open. Henry muttered something under his breath. Mom looked like I'd physically slapped her. Rachel, she whispered, her voice trembling. You're calling the police on your own family? I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. This is going to ruin everything, Lindsay hissed. Do you know what people are going to say about you? Yes, I said. They'll say I finally stopped opening the door. Mom blinked. Her voice went soft, almost pleading. You used to be kind. I didn't flinch. And you used to notice when I was hurting. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was dense, packed full of the things I never said. The boundaries trampled. The thank yous I never got. The years of yes when all I wanted was to scream no. 10 minutes later, the patrol car arrived. The officer stepped out, tall, calm, professional. Her hand hovered near her belt but rested easy. Evening, she said. We got a call about trespassing. I nodded. That's me. The officer looked past me at my parents, at Lindsay, then at the car still idling with its trunk full of bags. Ma'am, sir, she said firmly, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. Henry stepped forward. This is our daughter. And this is her residence, the officer replied. which you are not allowed to occupy without her permission. Lindsay looked like she was on the edge of tears or a tantrum. Maybe both. You're going to regret this, Jenna. No, I said quietly. I've regretted almost everything up until now. This is the first thing I'm sure of. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad. The rest from numbers I didn't recognize, probably cousins or family friends I hadn't heard from since high school. Then came the texts. Why would you do this to your own sister? Your mom is devastated. Lindsay's sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't respond. I just kept scrolling. Eventually, I found it. A public Facebook post from Mom. 3 long paragraphs, heartbreak emojis scattered throughout, and a photo of Lindsay as a toddler in a sundress. We raised both our daughters to care for each other. But one of them has forgotten what that means. We're heartbroken that Jenna, so successful, so fortunate, would turn her back on us in our time of need. Lindsay didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since I was 12, calling me selfish, cold, ungrateful. It wasn't new. Just louder. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in my life, I posted back an dramatic caption. No hashtags. Just facts. A screenshot of the $2,000 I transferred to help cover their mortgage. Another showing my name on Lindsay's car loan, followed by a collections notice, a photo of the lawyer invoice from her DUI, a timeline of every one-time favor I'd agreed to since I turned 21. The closing receipt from selling the condo, and finally, a screenshot of a message Lindsay sent me 2 years ago, calling me a boring robot because I wouldn't let her crash for a month. I ended it with one line. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. Then I turned off my phone, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need applause. I just needed quiet, and, for once, I had it. That night, the apartment was still. No buzzing phones, no thudding footsteps in the hall. Just the hum of the fridge, the creak of the pipes in the walls. I made tea chamomile not because I needed help sleeping anymore. It was for the ritual, a warm cup held in both hands. Steam rising like forgiveness I never asked for. My phone lit up once. Mom. Then again. Lindsay. I didn't open the messages. I didn't need to. I knew the rhythm by heart, shock, anger, guilt, pleading. Always in that order. I blocked both numbers. Not out of spite. Not out of pride, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. I stepped out onto the balcony. It was cold, but not sharp. The kind of cold that made you feel present. Alive. Below, the city moved, headlights glowing. Someone walking a dog in a puffy jacket too big for spring. A neighbor 2 floors down waved. I waved back. That small gesture, simple, unforced, felt more honest than most things I'd done out of obligation. Back inside, I turned the lights off one by one. The living room, the kitchen, the hallway, and picture frames on the walls. No family photos. Just stillness, just spaced. I didn't feel triumphant. Or bitter. Or broken. I just felt done. Done performing. Done explaining. Done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned how to breathe on their own. Somewhere out there, I knew they were rewriting the story again, recasting me as the villain, the cold daughter, the ungrateful one. Let them. I didn't come here to be loved. I came here to stop pretending I hadn't disappeared. They told the story like I vanished. But now I've told it myself.